This is the first real final for the Brazilian national team in the 2026 World Cup. Brazil takes the field this Wednesday to face Scotland in the last match of the group stage, Group C of the Brazilian national team, which also includes Morocco and Haiti, who have already been previous opponents, and now it's Scotland. It's the Scots' turn to challenge the Brazilian national team. And look, just because Brazil is ahead of Scotland in the standings doesn't mean Brazil won't have difficulties, no. On the contrary, Scotland promises to come in and try to surprise the Brazilian national team, and of course, also secure their place in the knockout stage. That's right, so anyone who thinks Scotland can't pull off an upset is mistaken. But this video here is to show you the reasons, the ways in which Brazil needs to pay close attention if they don't want to be surprised by the Scots. But before we point out these ways, let's go back a little in time to remember how the last match between these two teams went in the World Cup. For that, let's get into our time machine here at Lance and go back to 1998. Opening match of the World Cup. At that time, the current champion was the one who played the opening match of the World Cup, and that's why Brazil faced Scotland in the first game of that tournament. And obviously, we had a lot of difficulty. Scotland didn't have as strong a generation as they do today, so naturally their strategy was to defend. It was a very well-organized 3-5-2, making it hard for opponents to find space, and the first coincidence already appears in the defensive system. The leader of that defense was none other than Colin Hendry, who also played for Manchester City and other important clubs in England. This has nothing to do with the Hendry of today, right? Jack Hendry, who should also be a starter in the match between Brazil and Scotland in 2026, is not related. Colin has 4 children, but none of them is Jack. In fact, one of them even plays in the top league of Scottish football. And as we mentioned, another coincidence in this video was the formation used by Scotland that year. Scotland was using a defensive 3-5-2 formation. During this cycle, Steve Clarke's team ended up using the 3-5-2 formation. In fact, they tested this formation again in the last friendlies before the World Cup, but they probably won't use it against Brazil again. Scotland used this formation back in Euro 2024 when they were in Germany's group, but they couldn't even qualify or get past the group stage. And then Clarke changed course, managed to alter this Scotland team so they could play in a 4-4-2 setup, which we're going to show you on the board. Clarke dropped the third center back, who could also play fullback like Tierney, to free up Robertson. So today the team plays with 2 center backs, actually with 2 defensive midfielders like this, with 4 in this first line here, 4 in the second line, and 2 up front. Today the team plays with 2 center backs who are good in the air, Grant Hanley and Jack Hendry, and for now there could also be the presence of Sutar coming off the bench, or being a starter alongside the other 2. That's up to Steve Clarke. On the left side, he has the team's main reference, which is Robertson. He's a guy who's a Liverpool idol with years and years there in Merseyside. And as a key player, he attacks the space a lot. So any space the Brazilian team leaves here, Robertson will be able to take advantage of. The good thing is that the Brazilian team is playing with fullbacks who are actually center backs. Sometimes it's Ibanez, sometimes it's Danilo. So he'll have less space here to attack. It's up to John McGinn to do what he likes to do. He's a player who should play wide on the left side, almost like the number 10 of this Scottish team, but he's a guy who cuts inside a lot. He has a very good shot from distance. So he'll be able to link up with the midfielders and actually free up this space here for Robertson to push forward. Across midfield, Ben Gannon stands out as likely the only Scottish player capable of taking on defenders one-on-one, creating plays with his speed and easing pressure for his team. He's the only player with that characteristic, so the counter-attacks will most likely go down the Scottish right side. On the left side of the Brazilian team, always attacking behind Douglas Santos. The second forward, T. Adams, also used to have this role in his previous clubs. But as he gets older, naturally his body starts telling him he has to adapt. So today he's a much more technical player, much more cerebral than just physical or fast. To make a rough comparison, it's what Neymar could be for this team today. And in the attack, we had a surprise in this World Cup. At least I was expecting Lyndon Dykes to be a starter, but that didn't happen. Instead, Clarke chose to go with Lawrence Shankland, who also has the top scorer title in the Scottish League under his belt. This also changes the team's characteristics a bit. Dykes is a player who likes to be involved and use his body, while Shankland also passes well but gets into the box more often. Inside the box, he has a much higher goal average compared to Dykes, so if a chance falls to Shankland, that's also a threat to Alisson's goal. So the spaces behind vary a lot within this 4-2 formation, with Robertson pushing forward and even with T. Adams moving out to link up with the midfielders. The one who moves around a lot in this line of two here is McTominay, which works almost like that famous 8 and 8.5. He could be more fixed in this position, but Billy Gilmour's injury, who is technically a very unique player and helps with Scotland's build-up, made Steve Clarke take a step back. So, even though McTominay played most of the cycle in the central position, he dropped back a bit to play as the second defensive midfielder. And he should also play like this against the Brazilian national team, so he can be that more technical guy, helping Scotland's team when building up from the back. We might see some changes in Scotland's starting lineup, especially since it's the last round and they need a positive result to advance. But that's the most likely scenario. Scotland is likely to rely heavily on the quality of their midfielders and try to launch balls forward to Shanklin. And of course rely on aerial play, the height of their defenders, and also crosses to both McTominay and Shanklin to try to surprise and beat the Brazilian national team. In summary, this Scottish team is much more individually talented than in 1998. Obviously, it's a team that Brazil has to respect, and Brazil needs to understand and study a lot to face this team as well. But it's nothing we can look at and say, man, Brazil can't win. On the contrary, Brazil has several ways to overcome Scotland. I even think it's the team's duty to win this game. It was always known that at a certain point in the job, Ancelotti would face teams parking the bus and very entrenched defenses ahead of him. So he must know how to create one-on-one situations for his players. Looking at Vinicius Junior on the left and Genon Duke, Scotland's right winger, likely won't drop back to double up. Defensive midfielders should handle the double marking. So when Vinicius Junior is one-on-one with Scotland's right back, he needs to take him on, and Brazil has to know how to create that situation for him. And if Genon Duke does drop back, the fullbacks need to provide support. And obviously at certain moments when Genon Duke doesn't drop back, the defensive midfielders will be the ones to cover. So naturally, this will also open up space in the middle for Bruno Guimaraes, Lucas Paqueta, and even Casemiro to make late runs and really catch the Scottish defense off guard. Also, Brazil should have the courage to press Scotland's build-up play, since it's not very good. Steve Clarke chose to use taller defenders, but put in players who lack skill building from the back and are stiff, the typical awkward centre-backs. Have the courage to press their build-up, Brazil. That's the key for the Brazilian team to surprise Scotland in what should be their first big final at the 2025 World Cup. Go get them, Brazil!